Today on the podcast, I'm really excited to have Allison joining me for the Ask the Counselor series. Allison, it's good to have you.
Thank you so much, Deborah. I appreciate it.
Allison is part of the Deborah Fileta Counselors Network. She's one of the amazing counselors on our team. Allison, tell us a little bit about what you do at the network. What are some things you're passionate about? Some of the type of people you love working with?
Well, I work with a variety of individuals. I really have a heart for relationships. And so I enjoy working with couples. I enjoy working with individuals who are focused on a relationship and improving that. And just working with individuals who want to overall gain greater health.
Yeah, and you've been married for, tell us a little bit about your family, how long you've been married.
We just celebrated our 25th anniversary about
Oh,
2 weeks ago. So we are in the second section, I think, of marriage and enjoying empty nesting. Our sons are young adults now, and we've kind of shifted into a new phase of life. It's been wonderful.
that's amazing. 25 years. Well, this is perfect because we have on the call today CJ joining us from Illinois, who comes with a relationship question. So I think this duo is going to be great to kind of tackle his question. CJ, it is good to have you.
Thank you so much. Glad to be here.
I'm so glad you were able to join us today with your question. Before we get into your question, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so my name's CJ. I am 29 years old. I live in Illinois. I work for a Christian broadcasting company called Three Angels Broadcasting Network as a camera operator. I wear multiple hats at the ministry as well. But yeah, it's a wonderful thing to be here.
That's awesome. I used to live in Illinois, actually. Have you ever heard of Peoria, Illinois?
Yes, ma'am. I am probably 100 or so miles south of Peoria.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, so tell us a little bit about what is on your mind that you wanted to talk to us about today.
Yeah, so recently I got out of a long distance relationship with another Christian young person. And during that relationship, something kind of sparked in my mind about just relationships and navigating them. And I'll just be brief on this. With her, um, she's a very wonderful person, a very godly young lady. But for some reason, I had a really hard time connecting with her as a person, or at least how I perceived connection. Um, and so when I got out of that relationship about maybe like 2 months ago or something, I've just been on this journey to trying to figure out what was missing. Why, if was there supposed to be a connection? Was there something missing that I just wasn't understanding? And so for me, I want to kind of, I guess, in a sense, pick your brains as people who are knowledgeable in this area, and just how important uh, how important feelings are and excitement in a relationship is, because I know that feelings are not the thing that you should be solely focused on. It shouldn't be the thing that guides the whole relationship because they wane and they fluctuate over time. But for me, I'm trying to figure out uh, if it's really important to have those feelings, especially in the initial stage. I have read your book True Love Dates and heard about the different seasons as well. So I'm thinking about in the spring season, or at least the beginning, how important those feelings are, and if they're supposed to be there in the beginning or slowly develop over time, and or are you supposed to really more rely on commonalities and values and those kind of things.
That's a really good question. So just out of curiosity, this is a previous relationship. So what ended up making it a past relationship rather than a relationship in the present? What ended up being like the defining point?
Well, for me, it was kind of I got to the point where I recognized that this young lady had a lot of really good qualities, but for me, I think I was a little too focused on feelings and connection, And so when I realized for myself that uh, I wasn't feeling the same way as she was,
Yeah.
then I was thinking like, this is not fair to her or something if I'm not being honest about my feelings. And we talked about it a lot.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it was mostly just for me not feeling feelings, or at least
So basically
gauging that.
this question, this exact topic was like,
Hmm.
okay, I'm not feeling what I think I should be feeling.
Yeah.
Is this a sign of like maybe there's something going on underneath the surface?
Hmm.
And so that was the main thing that caused you to decide that, okay, maybe we shouldn't be in a relationship if I'm not feeling the same things that she's feeling. So it is a really pertinent question because you're
Hmm.
like, next relationship, I want to know what to expect and what I should or shouldn't be feeling.
Yeah.
So, okay, Allison, let's start with your thoughts on that question. Like, how do you know what you're supposed to be feeling? And especially as we're zooming into like the first few months, which I think, as CJ mentioned in one of my books, specifically, I really unpack it. I talk about it a little bit in True Love Dates. I really unpack it in Love in Every Season. But that season of spring, those first 3 months where there should be a level of feeling and excitement and connection and attraction and chemistry. And what happens when you're not feeling some of those feelings? What do you do? So, what are your thoughts on that, Allison?
Well, it's hard, isn't it? CJ, I think I'm hearing you mention a lot of important things already. You understand that feelings are not the end all and be all that's going to keep a relationship in a healthy place and sustainable over time. That's not the foundation, but it is something that's important. I think it signifies chemistry a lot of times. So I have another question for you on that past relationship, since that's what we're bouncing from. What led you to engage in the relationship in the first place? What connected you and this young woman?
Oh, that's interesting. So I'll try to be brief. So we were connected through, I don't know if you guys are familiar with it's a chat app called Discord,
Yeah.
um, which mostly is for gamers, but a lot of other communities have taken a hold of it. So I was actually on a young adults dating server on there. And she was what I would call one of the lurkers. They had like these profiles, you can go see who's on there and what they're about. She never made an account or a profile, but I did. And so she contacted me and we started talking and we found out we had quite a bit in common. Religiously, we're of the same denomination. We have very similar dislikes and likes. And also, uh, thankfully, we're also very politically the same. So that was really helpful. So we connected that way. Um, what kind of drove us into a relationship was we were talking mostly for 2 weeks. We started chatting, and then we talked on the phone, and then I video chatted her um, last November, and then we were talking. I'm trying to remember. We were talking for about 2 weeks, and we realized, okay, we have some things in common. We feel like God was opening a door. We were clearly attracted to each other, um, and so we were like, hey, why not? Let's see where the Lord leads. Let's try this out. Um, Looking back on it though, I do feel like in the initial, like the first few weeks, I was excited. I was happy to talk to her. I would say maybe I had some feelings or maybe it's more initial attraction. Um, but within about 2 or so weeks, I experienced the most intense stress of my life. I felt like, which was linked to my perception that God was telling me that this wasn't the right relationship. Um, so yeah, that's how we got into it, and that's kind of where my journey with the feelings kind of waning in some ways, and also some other things that if you guys want to get into, we can.
So the
Okay,
feelings
well that
were there at the get-go, but then you felt like God was telling you that this isn't the right relationship. Did you feel that there were specific reasons why?
Um, yeah, I've been struggling with the whole idea of readiness, and also with for myself with healthiness, just making sure that I'm a healthy person and just kind of gauging that stuff, to the point where I think I obsess and get discouraged over whether or not I am ready or healthy enough for a relationship. And so it wasn't even that I thought God was telling me this is not the right relationship. I felt like I should not have been in a relationship at all, even if this was a really great, godly relationship. A lot of my stress was that, um, and yeah, it was. There's maybe like one little fight that we had at the beginning too that really taught me a lot, but also kind of amplified my stress. But I will say that even in that stress, I didn't immediately end the relationship, only because I've done that in the past where once that kind of thing happened and then there's feelings dropped, I would end it. And so I was telling myself, don't make any rash decisions and just keep going and see where this leads. Don't do it out of fear. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So we're trying to dissect here, Allison. Are the feelings coming from the fact that something needs to be addressed in the relationship, or are the feelings coming from the fact that something needs to be addressed in CJ, or a little bit of both? So, what are your thoughts, Allison, so far?
Well, I'm matching with your questions there, Deborah. CJ, I'm hearing that you referred to something, and I'm wanting to just check with you. Has there been a pattern of this fear of readiness in the past? It seemed like maybe you mentioned like other times in past relationships there were feelings and then suddenly they dropped off again. Tell me a little bit more about patterns from your past.
Yeah. So about a few years ago, I had a relationship, a very long distance relationship, with a young lady from Indonesia of the same denomination and so on. Um, we the difference between my most previous relationship and that one was that we talked for about a month before we even entered into a relationship. And once we did, 2 weeks into the whole thing, I was so naive of anything with this relationship stuff that I felt that I wasn't feeling any feelings for her. And so I ended the relationship 2 weeks into it. And then I realized later on that feelings, they come and they go, and they're not the ultimate decider. But in terms of the readiness, yeah, I really do struggle with that, as a just a consistent life thing. Um,
Mhm.
just mostly what it comes down to is I used to consume a lot of YouTube content of like Christian influencers and like really well-meaning Christian men who talk about readiness and they talk about these things. And I have a really bad habit of comparison where I listen to what they're saying and then I look at my own life and I'm like, I give myself the most low of estimations and I say, I'm not ready. I lack in this place and this place and this place and this place and this place. And it really causes discouragement. And then it just makes me think like, man, I need to be I oh, I'm in this relationship, but really should I be in this relationship? Um and and I do have obsessive tendencies, um, not to the point where I've been diagnosed with OCD or anything like that, but I do have obsessive tendencies in that regard and perfectionism, and so I think some of that also messes with the whole idea of, am I ready? Am I healthy enough? And all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I can imagine obsessive tendencies, rumination, anxiety can put a damper on pretty much any good feelings that
Oh yeah.
someone might be feeling, right?
Hmm.
So it's like anything. Like imagine I'm getting ready to go on a tropical vacation. And I start to think, well, what if my luggage gets lost? And what if the plane crashes? And what if I get to the hotel and there's bed bugs? And what if it rains all week? And I start to really ruminate on all of these things. Next thing you know, the joy of the vacation is zapped. And I imagine
Hmm.
something kind of similar is happening when you're in a relationship. You start to really overanalyze What am I supposed to be feeling? Why don't I feel this way? Am I even ready? Am I even good enough for this? Am I man of God enough? What about all these things? And next thing you know, the feelings of joy, excitement are now like dread, anxiety, worry. I don't really feel the things I'm supposed to feel. I feel stressed. And then you just exit.
Hmm.
So there's a couple things going on here.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, Allison, jump in.
So CJ, what do you typically have a lot of awareness about anxiety when it's taking over because of those obsessive thoughts and ruminating thoughts?
That's a good question. I think more recently I have become more aware. Um, I think though the problem is that I may be aware of them, but I don't know how to push them away and deal with them. So I'll give an example. When I actually, in spite of how I was struggling and feeling, I actually went down to see her in January. And initially, first day, it was fine. But I found myself getting way too in my head and thinking like, well, why am I not feeling the way I'm supposed to, blah, 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 whatever stuff is coming up. And I remember throughout the whole week, I remember having um, the weirdest anxieties to the point where it was like I had times where I couldn't eat. Like we would go eat and I couldn't eat. Like I could barely eat certain things. Like my stomach was upset. And I've experienced some forms of anxiety in that regard and just mostly fear in my life. But that was the first time that I really felt like this is the first time I ever had anxiety where I couldn't eat or barely eat. And it wasn't that the food wasn't horrible or was horrible or anything. It was just that I was like, this just doesn't feel right for some reason, and I don't have feelings for her or whatever's going on, and just freaks me out. So
Yeah. Yeah.
So based on what you're sharing, I'm hearing that there is a pattern, and you're right, you're gaining that awareness that, okay, gosh, this is anxiety, because
hmm
anxiety keeps us so focused on what's going on inside that no doubt you can't even be aware and be present in the moment with somebody outside of your own person. You are consumed with these feelings, this fear, this doubt, and all the overthinking. So I'm sure your thoughts are probably really jumbled in those moments. And that would absolutely overshadow and cloud out any kind of connection or feeling that you could have in the moment outside of yourself. Does that sound like that fits and that's what you were maybe experiencing?
I have thought about that. I I had a short stint with believing the possibility that I did have a form of OCD, like relationship OCD. And so with like the obsessiveness and how, you know, trying to find the perfect person and just obsessing all that stuff that comes with it. Um, I think it's that in a combination of some of my own personal insecurities and fears, but also she was talking about even meeting her parents when I went down there, and her dad was ex-military, and so I was a little worried about that as well. So there's different kinds of fears and some of those anxieties that just I think probably did put a damper on it, or it just been a possibility that she was more connected to me than I really was with her. Either
Yeah.
way, I see that.
So it's pretty clear that you have some form of underlying anxiety, whether it's undiagnosed OCD, whether it's undiagnosed relationship OCD, whether it's undiagnosed general anxiety, whether it's just some form of underneath the surface anxiety. The point is your personal anxiety is kind of starting to get in the way of your personal judgment, of your ability to see clearly. Because it's like, is this the anxiety? Is this me? Is this God? Or is this the
Hmm.
anxiety? And I think people who struggle with anxiety, especially, have a hard time knowing, is this God? Or is this anxiety? Because the Bible says we're supposed to feel peace. And so we chase after peace. But those who struggle with generalized anxiety aren't going to always feel peace, even when they're doing the right thing. In
Mhm.
fact, if we're seeking out, I'm just going to trust, I'm just going to follow peace, you might not actually feel peace about anything, even when you're doing the right thing. And so this is where it gets complicated, is because it's a huge part of this. We can't even begin to assess what you're supposed to be feeling or not feeling until we get a better grasp of your anxiety and get that under better control, because that is clouding your judgment. It's kind of putting a damper on all of the good feelings that you're supposed to have. So it's hard to gauge. The feelings are important in the sense that they can be a little bit of a thermostat. Like if it's at 0, there's probably some things I need to address. If it's at 100, if it's at 50, but yours are always going to be low because your anxiety is affecting the thermostat. It's making
Mm.
everything feel difficult, scary, worrisome, insecure, panic, obsessions, ruminations. And so we can't necessarily trust your relational thermostat when it comes to feelings because the anxiety is overwhelming it right now.
Mm.
I actually worked with a gentleman who was feeling a lot of these feelings up through his wedding day
Mhm.
because of his unmanaged anxiety. And when
Mm.
he started managing the anxiety, then it was like, oh my goodness, this is how I'm supposed to feel. I just wasn't feeling the things I was supposed to feel because my anxiety was clouding it. And so whenever, and for those who are listening who might struggle with some of this, whenever you struggle with a lack of feeling, specifically in that first 3 months of a relationship, you want to ask yourself, is this something to do with the relationship? Is there something I can pinpoint here? Like, this is my body is reacting because maybe this person isn't as strong of a believer as I need them to be, or maybe there's unhealthy habits and patterns, or maybe there's a negative pattern of communication. Is there something wrong with the relationship, something that needs to be addressed or paid attention to? Or is there something that needs to be addressed or paid attention to in me, which in your case, yep, the anxiety. For some people, it's commitment issues. For some people, it's fear of rejection, or a little bit of both. And in this case, it sounds like there was a little bit of both. There's a few things in the relationship, but there's a lot going on inside of you. And so it's hard to really assess the relationship's health until you've dealt with the portion that belongs to you, which is in this season, the anxiety. Allison, anything to add to that?
I agree a lot. I think our emotions can be very similar to signals, like on our dashboard in our car, that when a signal goes off or an emotion starts coming up for us, it tells us check into that. And sometimes, if you've got a windshield wiper alert that you need more windshield wiper fluid and you have a check engine light, there's one that's bigger, right? You need to go and check on that engine maybe before you worry about the fluid in your washer. So I want you to kind of think about that these emotions, we're not supposed to ignore them. We're also not supposed to just immediately believe the worst case. Like sometimes if I see the check engine light go off, suddenly I'm afraid that my engine's going to explode in the next 10 minutes. Well, it might just be a small issue. So I want you to kind of think about that. What is this emotion alerting me to? And then ground yourself in truth. What do I know to be true? So is God a God of confusion? Is God trying to keep me in a state where I can't tell what's what and where I'm not able to connect helpfully with myself, with Him, and with others? And so I want you to kind of ask yourself some of those questions. And then what I would encourage you to do is consider engaging in some personal growth so that you can start managing that anxiety in a more effective way, whether it's through some grounding tools, whether it's through some other exercises that I would highly recommend that are pretty simple, CJ. It's not like it's going to take, a whole lot of work, but I think just some better tools to help you, I think can immediately start to make a change in how you can stay grounded in yourself, recognize what's true and what's not, and then start feeling feelings and knowing what they are without that overshadowing anxiety that just seems to distract you and kind of cloud everything else.
Yeah, because there's a good chance, CJ, that no matter what type of relationship you're in moving forward, that anxiety is going to creep back up. And that doesn't necessarily mean you bail. It doesn't necessarily mean something's wrong with the relationship. And if anxiety is what I know it to be, it's going to find something wrong with the relationship and like fixate on that. So we have to get that radar right so that we can then have a healthy assessment of everything else. So I would really encourage you to do some work on that because you don't want it to cloud what you're supposed to feel. And I have a feeling you're not going to be able to feel what you're supposed to feel, what you want to feel, what you desire to feel until you deal with this part. And then you'll be able to recognize, okay, that's the voice of anxiety. I can ignore that one. You know, you start to recognize the difference.
Mhm.
So that, I guess that opens the door for a new journey for you, huh?
Yeah, I've already I feel like I've already been working on that a little bit.
Good.
Yeah, I already have I already have the understanding that in many cases, especially when anxiety hits, that um, it's not God telling me things. It's not him. That's not how he speaks. He doesn't speak through fear and anxiety and chaos. But like what you were saying earlier, Deborah, it's true. A lot of people, especially who are struggling with anxiety, and if they have OCD or something, they don't experience peace a lot of times. And so sometimes even peace is not not an accurate gauge because you may not feel it all the time.
Right.
So yeah, I already have a therapist as well, and so I'm going to mention this to him and get it
Good.
working.
Good. I think that's definitely your next area of focus because the next thing will be much easier to assess once the major thing is dealt with. And I think it'll really free you up to feel what all the things that you're supposed to feel. So
Mhm.
that's a really good question, and I appreciate you being vulnerable and coming on and sharing. And I know it's going to help a lot of people because I actually get a lot of emails about relationship OCD. So I
Mm.
know that a lot of people feel like they're fixated on this. They've got this underlying anxiety about it. So you're not alone. And I think your vulnerability is going to help a lot of other people. So thank you so much for joining us, CJ.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you guys.
Take care.